Well, it being Wednesday, I want to get back to looking at the life of David today. And last time we had seen when David really comes on to the scene in a public way and defeating Goliath and leading the Israelites to victory over the Philistines. And that's when things really pick up for David, as we see in 1 Samuel chapter 18. But really what I want to do is, because there's so much to this, really we could spend a long time, studying out the rest of the life of David. But I kind of want to hit the main points, the highlights. And really this next point that I want to make really, or at least generally, covers the whole rest of the book of 1 Samuel. And I'm not going to obviously read all of that word for word. So what I like to do actually in today's video is just to summarize what's going on with David, and to point out a lesson about his character through all of this for our purposes today. And I encourage you to go back and maybe when you have time to read through all of it in detail. There's a lot involved here, but basically what ends up happening, and what I want to focus on today about David and his character and his heart, is truly, his humility, his loyalty. Something we see in David at this time in great adversity, because what happens is after David kills Goliath, and then Saul really begins, as we see in chapter 18. He brings David in and puts David in charge of, the men of war, and David goes about. Well, David starts having a lot of victories over the Philistines. Well, then Saul starts to become jealous, and Saul starts to become suspicious that David is going to take the throne from him. And then we see in chapter 18 that even gets so bad that David is doing what he normally did when Saul would have a distressing spirit from the Lord, that David would come in, David would play the harp for Saul. And on this occasion, in chapter 18, Saul has a spear and throws it at David, wanting to kill him, wanting to, in his own words, pin David to the wall. And David, of course, flees and runs away. But how would we react to that? I mean, David is there. David's done nothing wrong. David is, serving his king and playing this music, and David has been loyal. David is now a faithful, loyal man of war, and now his king, Saul, just tried to kill him. Saul does that, and this starts this whole really roller coaster throughout the rest of 1 Samuel, where really Saul, just as time goes on, as you read through these chapters, Saul just becomes more and more jealous and angry and hating David, and Saul is trying everything just about he can do to persecute David, to get at David. And even Saul goes after David. I mean, David basically for a long time, David is on the run throughout these chapters from Saul, because Saul is trying to catch him. Saul is trying to kill him. And through all of this, as David's running, there are actually times where Saul comes close, and there are actually a couple times where, for instance, in chapter 24, also you see another one in chapter 26, where David actually has the chance to kill Saul. There were a couple instances where Saul was not aware that David was there. David could sneak up on Saul, which he actually did on both of these occasions, and took something from Saul to prove to him that, David would tell Saul afterwards, listen, I could have killed you, but I didn't. And I love that, and I'm amazed at that in the character of David. That after all the hatred and evil that Saul was doing to David, Saul was trying to kill David, Saul was chasing David, David remained humble and loyal. David would not kill, as he still called Saul, even though we know the Spirit of God had left Saul, and David was by God anointed king. David still looked at Saul as the anointed one of God. And David would not, and even when David's men said, "Hey, David, come on, we gotta kill him. Now's our chance," David said no. David always sought restoration with Saul. And actually, there were times where that's kind of why it's a roller coaster is, Saul would, "Oh, well, I'm so sorry, and, I repent of what I did," but then he would turn right back around and attack David again and come after him again. What I am amazed of and encouraged, and what I'm learning myself and trying to learn from the character of David towards Saul, is that no matter what evil Saul did to David, David remained humble and loyal to God, loyal to his king. David's heart through all of this, just that humility, that loyalty speaks to me. I've always been amazed at that. And when David could have just ended it, but he didn't. And that's another lesson of vengeance belongs to the Lord. Yeah, Saul did a lot of bad things, but David was leaving the vengeance against Saul in the hands of the Lord. Vengeance belongs to the Lord. The Lord was going to take care of Saul. But David was going to do his part and be faithful, be loyal, and seek to do good. And we see that throughout the rest of the book of 1 Samuel, and how, again, David continues to spare Saul's life, continues fighting. David continues to do some good things. But then what's also amazing is at the end of the book of 1 Samuel, when Saul and Jonathan both are killed. Well, 2 Samuel opens up with David receiving the news of Saul and Jonathan's death. And David mourns, not just for Jonathan. Jonathan and David were blood brothers, very close. They had a great friendship. And you would think, okay, sure, David's going to mourn for a good friend, but mourn for Saul? But David did. You would think, naturally, oh man, Saul's gone, finally, I don't have to worry about that anymore. But David didn't do that. When Saul was killed, David mourned for Saul. He mourned for Jonathan. And I'm amazed at that too. That no matter what Saul did to David, no matter how bad it was, no matter how much Saul persecuted and did so many things against David, David still remained humble. David still mourned Saul's death. What I learned in all of this, and really continue to learn, there's more obviously that happens. We're going to come back, probably look at some other lessons in David's life. But what I learned from this, that time period where, Saul went crazy. And Saul was trying to kill David. Saul was doing everything he could to make David's life miserable. But David remained humble and loyal. David remained focused on the Lord and what is good and right to do. And we need to learn that too, and we're facing that. And no matter who we're dealing with and people around us, and even what God has always taught us people, and what Jesus is teaching us is to love our enemies, to do good, and to know that vengeance is the Lord. Leave vengeance in the hands of God. Vengeance belongs to the Lord. He will repay. It is our job to seek to do good, to remain humble, to remain loyal, and to do good to all men. So let's learn that from David. Let's keep working on it. It's not always easy, but we got to learn it. So let's keep working on it. Learn to have that kind of heart like David in all that situation. And let's be pleasing to God above all. And know that God will take care of us. God bless.